Yo, 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 what it do? What it do? It's your boy Yellow the Poet here. And today we have Mrs. Go ahead.
Venchele Saint Dic. Venchele Saint Dic. Yes. Hi. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining YTP Entertainment. It's a blessing to have you. I was reading your profile. I love everything that you're about. It is so intriguing, and I'm definitely looking forward to having you to explain to our audience the many hats that you're wearing because you are definitely on the road here.
Yes, no, for sure. I'm well again, like thank you for having me on the show. Like I was saying to you earlier, I'm just grateful for your platform and just everything that you stand for. And it does make a difference, when you meet kindred souls where, the values align, right? There's synchronicities between the work that we're doing. But like you said, I do wear, many, many hats. I have, typical, just like everyone else, a 9 to 5, but I also have like a side business called Pathway Coach Writing, where I help people like you and I amplify their voices in the writing, industry. And yes, there has been an increase in terms of like Black authors putting themselves out there, but there's still like a paucity. There's not a whole lot of people who are editors and who happen to be, people of color. And so that's the gap that I'm trying to fill right now by being part of the movement. But also, too, I would be remiss to say my background is in public health.
Yes.
And so I'm currently in a doctoral program studying public health leadership with a focus on behavioral health. My goal and my dream is to increase access to
Mhm.
behavioral health services, and also looking at the for people to look at the overdiagnosis or underdiagnosis of people with mental health needs. But then again, because I'm at the beginning of the journey for my doctoral program, things could change, right? Like, because it's a very broad topic, but I would need to refine it. So I guess however God wants to use me, however the universe wants to use me, I'm here for it. And
Yeah.
so in a nutshell, I would say like that's what I do. But there's just so there's so many different other hats. But I think, those are the main ones that I'm currently making space for,
Exactly.
right?
And that is awesome. That is so awesome. So, what happened in your life, good or bad, that drew you to this direction?
Um, what drew me to this direction was when I was living in Haiti. Because I think I forgot to mention this earlier. I was born in the States, but I grew up in Haiti because my family's from Haiti, Martinique, and France. And even though I didn't grow up poor, but I was surrounded by it. I was surrounded by it day in and day out. And just based on the way that my family raised me, there has always been like this sense of activism, right? Like I grew up in a household where, people really believed in doing good, for others.
Mhm.
And I think that I realized that something just seemed a little bit off. Because you live in a country where where you have many, many, many qualified people, right, to do the work that they're meant to do in this world. But then you have many homeless folks, just like in the States.
Mhm.
I live in Maryland, but I'm from the DMV area, um, which is the nation's capital. And in DC, you see many folks who are homeless. Like, why is that? And I
Wow.
think that's when I realized that something has to change, because this doesn't feel right. And then also too, it's a bigger discussion on whether or not we're doing something good, if we're doing the right thing in our society to pull these people up,
Mhm.
right? It's the crab in the barrel conversation. As you're moving up, who are you pulling with you? But in this scenario, it would be, well, as societies is continuing to improve, as you know, as a technology continues to be more refined, as the GDP continues to increase, well, how can we lift up these souls as well so that they can earn capital, so that they can also live a decent life, so that we don't have as many homeless people in the streets?
True, true. That is so true. And that's one of the things that I'm actually working on as well. I have a store, an online store, and it's called DFAM Geared Up. And I'm taking 10% of whatever proceeds that I make from there, and I'm actually going to physically go out and
Mhm.
feed the homeless. I'm waiting for the opportunity to actually start making profit and things of that nature before I actually start it, but that's the goal. So I
Right.
understand. I totally
But you
understand.
see, that's the seed. You planting the seed. You planting the seed.
Yes, indeed. I'm planting the seed because I feel like that it's not enough being done for homeless people. It's not enough being done for people who have actually, like the veterans, who have actually fought for our country, and they're not doing anything for these
Mm.
people. And all these things to fight for a country, and then the country turn their back on them. Like that's a real dirty thing. And then another thing that happens is a lot of people capitalize on the things that happen to other people. Like take for example, our veterans. I'll go back to them. They capitalize on that and they'll open up all of these places and say that they're actually going to be funding the homeless veterans, but yet they're pocketing the money for other things. So
That's the capitalistic, model right there. We will say on, we'll say on the website, we'll say on the brochure what you want to hear, because remember, it's a brand. We're going to sell you the brand, but behind closed doors. And this is something that I always ask myself is, are people actually doing what they say on their website? Like, for example, with the veterans, like, yes,
yeah,
like I'm a huge fan of Goodwill. Each time I need to donate something, I need to donate clothes, I go to Goodwill. But there's no way for me to know for sure if the people who actually need the clothes, right, are actually getting it.
right.
You always living in this level of uncertainty, and I think that can cause a lot of anxiety, I think.
Well, I do know, and I kind of hate to put this out there, but truth is truth. I'm sorry. It is what it is. There was a study done on Goodwill, and the people are actually very angry with Goodwill right now because a lot of the proceeds that Goodwill is getting from the stuff that they're selling in their stores and things of that nature, they're not putting anything back into the neighborhoods. Nothing, not one red cent.
Mm,
And I'm sorry, but these are facts and statistics that you can actually go and look up and find out for yourself. Because when someone told me, I was like, let me go look this up for myself and find out. And it's
mm-hmm,
black and white. So it's in black and white. So
mm-hmm.
that many people, because there's like hundreds of thousands of people who are basically saying the same thing. So I don't think that many people are wrong. And
No, I don't think so either. And I think you did something that there's some people who are not necessarily doing that enough, but you're fed information, but you went out there to look up, research and, and studies from reputable sources, to confirm or not confirm what you're being fed.
exactly.
And that's all part of being an informed consumer. And so that's something that people don't usually talk about, but that's extremely important when we're talking about making the world a little bit better than how we left it. Well, you need to rely on your own, critical thinking skills to kind of put one and one together and read between the lines. And that's what happened with Goodwill.
And I was a firm, like, just advocate, like Goodwill. I'm really loving they're making these cheap prices on items and where people can afford them and go and purchase them. And every once in a
Yeah.
while, thought that maybe they would be giving some of the things out. Like if a homeless person came in, maybe they would give them something, but no, it's all for profit for them,
Mm,
for their
mm.
pockets, which also goes back to what I just spoke on. The very thing that I said that I don't like is when they set up all of these programs and set up all these businesses and things of that nature and say they're for one thing, but they're actually doing something else. It goes right back to that. Sad but true.
But also, isn't it a discussion? It's sad and true, and I'm wondering, isn't this a discussion on accountability? Like, how do we hold these organizations accountable?
Well, one of the ways
What
that
were your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the ways that we can hold them accountable, because I'm actually a business major. I have a master's degree in business, and I've also did a lot of studies and research
Hmm.
on this. But one of the things that you can one of the ways to hold any business accountable is to definitely stop shopping with them and spread the word to others that
Yeah.
actually care. And it is so effective because I'm originally from Chicago. And back in Chicago, we've done this a many times, especially with like those little mom and pop neighborhood stores. They want to come into your
Yes.
neighborhood and sell you items for some outrageous prices. And we're like, yeah, okay,
Mm.
gonna show you better than we can tell you. You're not going to keep doing this to us. So we literally told all of our neighbors, don't shop there at that store anymore. And trust and believe,
Wow.
start bringing them prices down quick, real quick, because you're not about to get over on us and think that we're going to keep spending our money with you, knowing that you're constantly trying to price gouge us, because there's a law against price gouging. And if you write it in, if you send it in to the FAA and also to the Better Business Bureau, those people gonna get in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
Wow. And would you say, do you have the same community organizing leverage where you at right now in Texas? Could you replicate what you did in Chicago?
Not yet, not yet, because I've only been here for
Okay.
and I am growing as far as Texas fan base is concerned. I am growing, but not enough right now to actually make a difference or say something and the other people actually follow through. But I am talking to people. That's one thing I am doing. I'm not sitting back.
Yes, no, for sure.
I'm definitely talking to people. Like right now for my book, Redeem Love, my poetry book, there is one of the elementary schools, one of the middle schools, and one of the high schools. They're actually speaking to other people about getting my books and helping the book sales grow. So
Mm.
I'm working.
No, this is no, you're definitely putting in the work. And that's the part of when we were talking about earlier about planting a seed. You're planting a seed and you're watering it
Yes,
so that it can grow. And so right now it may seem like, okay, like you just see a bud, but the bud will turn into a flower, it will turn into a tree. But what people don't understand is that you have to keep walking, you have to keep doing
yes.
for you to see the results. And so that's what you're doing. That's part of your purpose.
Yes, indeed. And I'm also a relationship coach. I talk to people about relationships and help them build stronger relationships. That's one of my main things. That's what I like. One of the main things besides my poetry that I like doing the most is building relationships. A lot of people don't understand when I say build relationships, what that means. The first thing that comes to mind is couples. Well, couples are not the only relationships that are out here. And
Mm,
especially my one of the things that I really love to talk about and show examples of is single moms who have sons. Because a lot of times
yes.
there's a communication barrier between male and female. And when I can show them how to bridge that gap, close it up, and say, hey, now we have some effective communication going now, we can actually make progress in our relationship. I feel amazing when that can actually happen. Like I did it, it's crazy because I did it at work. And there's a lady, her and her son didn't really talk much because he was kind of quiet, but now more communication, far more communication. And I'm happy. I'm happy because I see it. I'm seeing them actually talking, walking and talking because I drive the school bus. That's my 9 to 5. So I'm talking to children, motivating these children every day. I try to say as many encouraging things to them as I possibly can. Because, like for me, for example, this is true, but it's an example. I say hi or grand rising instead of saying good morning. And I call my students either students or I call them future leaders because they are the next
Mm.
generation. So that's what I call them, future leaders. So I'm already embedding a thought process that I hope that they embrace and they can feel proud of knowing that, okay, why does he say something different from what everybody else says? Or let me feel a bit more empowered as a young person or as a child because now I'm being looked upon as a future leader. So either way it go, I want to make it a positive narrative that they're embracing and taking in.
And even as you're saying this, you are not just giving them empowering words, but you're sort of changing their
Mhm,
mindset on who they are.
mhm.
And we don't even know how many of these students didn't grow up with a parent, if they're
Well,
adopted, if they
yeah,
are in foster care, we don't know. And so it may just be that when you meet that person, you meet the student, that
mm,
you're the, you this is the first time that they're hearing someone encouraging them.
yes,
And so and that's part of our ministry. We minister to people hoping that we will, sow some hope,
hmm,
in there, because that's what I do in my business. Like when I talk to my clients, I use positive psychology, really helping them focus on their strength.
yes,
So really involved in strength based coaching, because the world will tell you in a
yes,
heartbeat what you cannot do. But I'm
eh,
here, and from what I'm hearing too in your, from what you're sharing with me, I'm here to tell you what you can do. And if I don't know what you can do, at least I can provide some guidance. At least I can give you a new perspective for you to go and reflect on and
yes,
come up with these ideas on your own. Because I'm a believer that I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't tell people what to do. I just provide recommendations,
yes,
based on where they are, and they have to own it. They have
yes,
to own the ones that resonate with them, and what doesn't resonate, it may resonate for the next brother or the other sister, that you meet on the path.
yes.
But that's beautiful. The fact that you're using, you know, in your 9 to 5, you're still ministering. You're still ministering to people and to future leaders. Actually, that's how I've been calling myself, for the past, not even before I got into the doctoral program. And it's not just telling yourself that, but it's also embodying the label that you have placed on yourself. So if you're going to call yourself a leader, the question is, well, how are you showing up as a leader every day? Now, you may not have the fancy title, but how are you doing that? Because being a leader doesn't always mean that you're going to be in the spotlight. Like
Yes, true.
right now, as a bus driver, like when people hear you say, hey, like from my 9 to 5, I'm a bus driver, most of the time bus drivers are not, again, in the limelight,
Mhm,
but they're still very much important to the system. They
yes,
doing the work on the back, like they doing the work, they leading on the sidelines. And
mhm.
that's what you're doing.
But I can tell
You're
you something.
leading.
to add to what you're saying, I can tell you something that's probably a little hilarious, but at the same time, I'm loving it because a lot of my coworkers are trying to model me. So I'm loving this because
Mm,
I talk to my students go back to their parents. Literally every single student I've had so far has gone back to their parents. So now I'm looking at parents coming to the bus stops with their children, even with their high school children, because they want to actually meet this bus driver that has been saying these positive affirmations to their children. So now a lot of my other coworkers, they're actually trying to model what I'm doing. And they are trying to, they like, man, I'm trying to be like you. All the parents know you, the school district know you, everybody turning down, they want to come see you. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, I'm just being me. I'm literally just being me.
mm,
I'm showing people that irregardless of whatever your trials and tribulations are or were, there's always an opportunity to be selfless, to be a role
mm.
model, to be a mentor,
Yes.
show someone that there's a brighter side to each and every situation, regardless of how hard it is. There's a brighter side to it. And I keep that in my brain, in my heart, in my soul. I eat, sleep, think, and drill that in myself ever since I was a little boy, that there's always something
Mm.
better. And this is what when I talk to the youth out here, I'm doing that same thing to them. I let them know. Yes, I majored in 4 years of psychology. So sometimes I can see that there's issues with the children, but I'm not going to bring it to the forefront. So what I do is I tell all of my students, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to talk about, this is an open door policy to this bus driver. I can't speak for anybody else because I'm also a trainer. I train people to drive the buses safely. I'm a safety trainer. So I teach people to safely drive the buses. And I'm not going to push anybody through because I value the lives of these children and the lives of the people that's going to be our future bus drivers. I value their lives. So I'm not going to just push anybody through. You have to be right for the job. You have to.
And also when you saying about when you to complement what you just said, do you think that there's a right way of mentoring people, or is it a situation where you try to meet folks where they are? Because with the open door policy that you have, um like how has it contributed, or how is it contributing to the growth and development of your students? Because I'm
Oh,
sure that you've been doing this for a long period of time.
I have. Well, as far as the school bus driving, it's been 3 years. But as far as the
Okay.
mentorship and an open door policy, because I did the same thing with my children as well, and I have 6 children, so I did the same thing with them as well. So instead of
Mhm.
what when I do the open door policy, I do meet the people where they are. That way, it's not like I'm invading on their privacy. It's more like them coming to me and telling me something, and then I stay focused on what they've told me and not try to stray off into other things because that usually causes confusion. And some people don't know that. But a lot of the parents don't know that because there's no guide to teach us how to be parents. Everything is through trial and error. And even just living everyday life is through trial and error. So we learn different things and we do different things based on whatever trials and tribulations that we've faced in our past. And now we're to the point where we can say, hey, okay, I've learned these things, I've learned that. And if I want to teach this, then let me pick a format or a pattern in which I do it. So for me, it's just basically when I say that there's an open door policy, this is giving you the opportunity to come to me rather than me trying to just assume or guess at what it is that your problem is. Some people just don't want to talk at all. And I'm fine with that. And I'll tell you, the greatest reward was last year. Last year, when my high school students graduated, a lot of my high school students graduated in tears, happy that I was their bus driver. I was the one who was able to talk to them, to able to reach them, and had that open door policy. Some of them even came to me for advice, was asking me questions and things of that nature. Sometimes they had homework assignments and they weren't sure about how to go about doing the homework assignments. I would explain to them how to do their homework, and so that they can get good grades. They came back to me and they was like, man, you knew this? Hey, I got a good grade on it because the way you explained it different from how my teacher explained it. So I understood it better the way
Wow.
so the end results were great because a lot of them came to me in tears, happy about the mentorship that I provided for them while they were on the school bus. So it's been great. It's been great. I love the children. I feel like the children are the most important people in the world. You doing all right? All right.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm just processing everything you're saying. Um, and so again, like I'm trying to think of, we talked about ministry,
Mm,
through our lines of work.
right.
Um, but but based on the current, again, people keep saying that we know the pandemic is over, but I know that there's that, we sort of went back into this new normal. And I don't know if we can talk a little bit more about that, like how has it impacted us,
Hmm.
as individuals in the communities that we live in.
That's pretty tough. I mean, I think that the new norm has a title to me called depression, and I think that the depression has become normal due to the fact that there has been so many negative impacts happening to various neighborhoods. And I can't even, well, there used to be a time where you could say that it was um the poor people that it was happening to. It's the middle class people that it's happening to. It's the upper class people but now it's happening to everybody, irregardless of what your stance on life is. It's happening to everybody. So when I look at it, sometimes I have to step back and recollect myself before I'm actually talking to someone, because I'm listening to what they're telling me. Because sometimes even my neighbors, they'll come talking to me and I'm listening to what they're saying, but I take a mental step back in order to allow myself to be able to adjust to what they're talking about and to be able to answer them appropriately. Because sometimes um being blunt, because I am blunt a lot of times about what I'm saying. Being blunt, sometimes you gotta kind of bite your tongue a little bit and just rearrange your wording. Because I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but I am trying to give you the truth. I just refuse to lie to anybody about anything. Tell the truth and let that be something that resonates with you. And along with that, reciprocate exactly what I'm saying, because I'm literally wholeheartedly trying to help you.
And when you're talking about being blunt, like I'm also very assertive.
Mhm.
um because I'm also a firm believer that, hey, like if I don't tell you the truth, like how are you going to grow and
Exactly.
how are you going to do better next time? And at the same time, I've learned that, like again, as Black folks, we always have to modify and premise because I know from, like, again, I grew up in the West Indies. I have to sort of premise everything I'm going to say and then contextualize what I'm going to say to whomever is in front of me.
Yes.
But now that I think about it, it does make sense for me to contextualize, because the person in front of me may not have gone through the same struggles. They may not have the same frame of reference. And
Yes.
so I know that I used to load that, and I used to say, well, it is exhausting. And yet I do think that even when you're talking about writing books, you can't just like write as if like I already know what you're going to talk about. You sort of have to talk to me as if you're talking to your grandmother. You have to present it in a way where I understand your story and I understand the premise of what you're trying to say. And that's something that I have to do all the time in public health. I cannot expect, because you were talking about the fact that you have a business, a master's in business. And I know for public health, like I always have to, sort of always give the backstory, because not everyone is coming in with a master's in public health. And to be frankly honest, there's some people who may not know what does that mean. Like when you say public health, are we talking about being an epidemiologist? Are we talking about policy? Like, is it at the state level, the federal level, the county level? Like how are you defining public health right now as we're speaking, right? And so I personally think that, the pandemic definitely changed how people communicate with each other. If nothing else, mental health, needs have exacerbated, um, since, even before the pandemic. It was just brewing on the surface. And then when the pandemic happened, that's when you started to realize, oh my goodness, like there are many people out there who are actually struggling.
Yes.
And then how can we help them out? But it's a bigger discussion on, I don't want to say the ineptitude, but there was definitely some backlash, I think, in
Yeah.
terms of how the messages regarding like how to protect ourselves, like during the pandemic, how it was communicated. And so it raises a bigger discussion on how can we do better in public health to effectively communicate with the communities that we serve,
Yeah.
so that we're doing more good than harm, if you will. But there was a point in time where people were getting mixed messages. And I can
Yes.
only imagine, you living in Texas, me, I'm living in Maryland, the landscape looked completely different in that sense, in terms of, how people were empowered, to do something, for them to, again, protect their loved ones and protect themselves during the pandemic. So it's good. It's good to know. It's good that I'm grateful that we had this conversation, today about not just not just about the nature of our work, but also how the pandemic sort of pivoted and shifted the way that we conduct the work that we do, through communication.
Yes, indeed. And I'll add something to what you're saying, because on my previous podcast, someone just asked me about the way that I was able to bring myself to the forefront during the pandemic. And that was because I wasn't doing podcasts before the pandemic. It wasn't until the pandemic that I decided to do the podcast. And the crazy thing about it is I started to see more people doing podcasts, more people doing videos, and some of them I actually sat back and I listened to them. Even if I didn't agree with them, I would listen to them, because it was about the structure in which they conveyed the messages that they were trying to convey to the public. And then it was
Mhm.
also about reading the types of personalities, the behaviors, the characteristics, the types of communication that actually came across the media. It was just so many things that I was um looking at and that I was analyzing as I'm watching these videos. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's like so many people literally came out of the closet as to showing you the real person that they really are versus the person that they portray themselves to be in a video. It's like the old saying goes, a drunk person speak a sober mind. And there's like all these people that were hiding behind that persona on the streets. When they got behind the video, they showed who they really were. And it's some of it was good and some of it was bad. Some of the people were still the same. Some of the people actually exploited their racial biasness, and it's just like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with these people? Don't you know that none of this stuff ever lasts forever, but that video does? And people are actually going to see.
Yes, that's a nice way of putting it. That's a nice way of putting it. But remember, this is part of the brand. They selling you something. Even, you know, the apps that you have these days, you know, since you said that you're a relationship coach, they selling you love. That's what they selling you. They are selling you the idea of what it should look like. And again, you know, that's a different discussion for another time, but that's it, all of these all of these entities, and you would know this because, you know, again, you've been in the industry for a while. um you know, it's really about being an informed consumer, reading between the lines, and really doing your research. And if you're still not satisfied after you've taken all these steps, like, talk to people who can give you a different perspective or viewpoint
Yes.
on these issues.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I always do. Like, even when you're looking at job prospects,
Hmm.
don't just rely on what's on the website. Talk to someone who works there. They'll give you they'll give you the real 411, hopefully, on whether or not they being impeccable with their words and actions. Um, but yes, no, I'm definitely, like I said, grateful that we had this discussion today.
Definitely, I am too. I am, no doubt. I feel like this is a discussion that I don't, not only needed to be discussed, but it also needs to be publicized. People need to hear different viewpoints and perspectives on these types of topics, because these types of topics are actually what's helping to shape and mold the world right now. And if
Yes.
you are a viewer and you're actually watching this podcast today, trust and believe there are more points of views than the ones that we're giving you right now. But also trust and believe that we're going to give it to you in the raw. We're going to tell you the truth. And nobody got time for all of the you know crazy accolades and unnecessary talk. We're going to give it to you exactly how it is.
Absolutely.
So I was also reading on your profile when you were talking about your writing, which includes the subject of public health, resilience, communication skills. How are you putting all these things together in your writing?
I would say, um it's a great question. And at the same time, you know, because, you know, like, when you come on anyone's show, you know, sometimes there's this perception that you have it all figured out, but I am sort of still figuring out
Okay.
how to combine, you know, the writing piece and the public health
Mhm.
aspect. I mean, I'm able to do that, you know, through the writing of policies or just the editing of policies. um but I don't think it's enough. And I
Okay.
think that's, I am at the juncture where I'm opening myself up to new possibilities, and also to new ideas on how to combine these two components and make it more, I don't know, more impactful, right? And to be honest with you, I don't know how it's gonna be, I don't know how that's gonna come into play. But one of the ways that I do it is, again, through podcasting, but most importantly, um, through other interviews as well. You know, just, you know, speaking my ideas into existence. And that's one way of doing it. I know another way is I'm creating a YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and, you know, trying to trying to see, you know, how I can leverage the writing and the public health piece
Right.
to speak to, to my audience on different topics. So
Right.
it's just there are many ideas that are sort of um just out in the ethos right now. But again, like I said, I'm figuring things out. So nothing is 100% all figured out. So
We all have a place. We all have a place where we have to start, and we all have to try different things and see what actually works best for us. Now, one of my ideas that I want to propose to you is at some point to take a recording, because I have recording on my computer. So take a recording, actually brainstorm some of the things that you actually want to say and pretty much how you want to say it, play it back, listen to yourself, and restructure it to take that and put that out there before you actually start going into the podcast and things, or going onto your YouTube channel, and let people actually just have something to listen to rather than having a video to go along with it.
I actually love that idea. I will actually I have my journal right now. I'm just jotting down notes because you just dropped some jam. Uh you definitely dropped some jam. So I will take you up on the offer and do that.
Awesome.
Um just
And
yes, because I think it's kind of it's sort of like being in a lab, you know what I mean? You're just mixing all of these different ideas and trying to see, what pans out. And I think that's one thing people don't talk about when discussing business development or when you're starting a business.
yes.
Um, you know, everything happens in seasons. And I'm sort of in the season where I'm taking a step back and I'm reflecting on what has worked and what hasn't been so successful,
Mm,
and defining why some of these things I try to accomplish were not successful for the business,
mhm,
and shifting my approach, right?
mhm,
Because I'm someone who listens to my clients all the time. I listen to what they need, but I also I sort of anticipate what they might need.
mhm,
And that's why Pathway Coach Writing has been so successful, because again, it's very much it's a client centric business. um and it's just like you were talking about your business, you want to figure out like how you adding value to your clients.
mhm,
And I think the best way or the best advice I can give to people is, when you do have a business, listen to those who are consuming and who are buying from you, because that keeps you relevant in the game. It really does.
it does.
And it also keeps you on your toes so that you're never stagnant, and so that you're able to um, look at your business from a critical lens. Because if you're not going to do it for yourself, who else is going to do it, right?
True. That is very true. Somebody else will do it, but they'll steal your idea and keep it for themselves.
Exactly. I mean, that's how all of these big corporations came about. Because it's not uncommon, for someone to have an idea, to do all of the grunt work, but someone else is representing the company and not the person who came up with the idea.
Because you get no form of credit, no form of acknowledgement or anything. They just totally block you out and pretty much make it seem as if you're the one that's following them, not them stealing your idea.
But
Sad, but
is it, but isn't, but here's the thing, even if there are people out there who may steal other people's ideas, do you think that the person who comes up with the idea may be the right messenger or the right person to lead the company to success? Because we also have to look at that nuance. Like, I may come up with an idea, right? Oh, well, actually, let's make it more relevant. It's like writing a song. I may write a song but I may not be the best person to sing the song.
Right.
And it's the same concept with a business. Like,
Hmm.
for example, I think with Chat GPT, they fired, they let go of the person who came up with Chat GPT because apparently they felt that um, he was not personable, right? He didn't know how to work with people. And
Right.
so I'm saying all this to say, and that's something that we have to think about. You may have a business idea, but are you the right person to deliver that service or that product?
Okay. So I get where you're going with that. And the first question that comes to my mind with that is the person that created, are they teachable? Because
Yes.
why take them out of the picture if they're teachable? If they're not teachable, then I can understand them being taken out of the picture. But don't completely take them out of the picture. Still give them some form of acknowledgement or credibility because they are the original creators.
Hmm.
And I feel like that because I'm always about fairness across the board.
Yes, I hear you, and I see where you're going with this, because I do believe that you should, I also think that you should keep that person around.
Yeah.
Just like, when you have new employees coming in, you want to have folks who have been around for 20 plus years doing the work to teach those new folks how to do the work. I get that. And in practice, sometimes you will find people, because there will always be a couple of outliers
Mhm.
where they're not coachable, they're not teachable.
Mhm.
And so now you have a liability. I'm looking at it from the lens of a business. You have this liability. So how do you ensure that before, if you've done everything you can, you've given them all the chances, you've found ways to incorporate them into this process that you're trying to create for your business.
Right.
But again, you just coming to a dead end. It's like, how do you make sure that the person, that you get as much knowledge from
Mhm.
that person before you have to let them go? Because there are some situations where you have to sort of cut your losses,
Yes.
because it will do more damage in the long run,
Yes, you do.
than good. And so I'm glad that we're having this discussion, because we have to look at the nuances, because what I'm even hearing and what I'm learning in our conversation is that everything is not black and white. So you have
Exactly.
to also look at the gray areas.
That's true. That's true. So now the next step that I will personally go to will be negotiations. Let's see if there's a way that we can actually take this creator
Hmm.
and make him a part of the business only by giving him, let's say, a certain percentage because he is the creator or she is the creator. And
Yes.
just pretty much putting someone else in there that can actually do the work and be more productive than what this creator is. But if there's anything like any small details or anything like that, then we still have the creator on board and we can still
Hmm.
reference information from that creator and keep the creator for that particular person purpose alone and let them still do whatever work that they're doing, but they just don't have any contact with our customers. So then it becomes a negotiation at that point. But if they can't seem to just follow through with that alone, now it's time for us to cut our losses and let me go ahead and see how I can innovate what you've already given me. So it's looking at it
Mm.
points of views and all perspectives, and at the same time you still giving this person more than enough opportunities to get themselves together because you were trying to keep them on board, and no one, including that person, even if it became a legal matter, can say that, hey, you didn't even give me a chance to see what I can do. You didn't even cover this base or that base because nothing was arbitrary. We covered all of the arbitration laws. We covered everything else. We covered the Fourth Amendment. We covered everything that we could possibly cover with you. So now that we've cut you, we did it for the safety of the business. And the law will back you because there will be no choice. You've done everything that you were supposed to do.
Yes, no, that makes sense to me. Again, I'm of the mindset that so this is just one of many different ways that we can, that can address this issue for sure.
Mhm. Definitely. It's definitely one of the many ways that it can be done. A lot of people are just cutthroat. They'll just cut the person off and then that's just it. And to me, that would come from a person that has been through some things in the past and they are afraid to continue to follow a model that would not only keep them safe and keep them from getting sued, but they lose all sense of care and they start just cutting people because they're angry. And like so many people have done this or so many people have done that, this bad thing that they consider bad. And they just start cutting people. But you can't do that. You can't lose who you are, lose sense of self because many people have either made the same mistakes or many people have made mistakes or many people have done things that you don't agree with. You just can't lose yourself because of that. You have to really still be that business model, that business leader, the owner of the company. You still have to be you, irregardless.
Yes, and then also it's about knowing thyself and doing the self-reflection work on what is enabling your company and the people in it to move forward.
Mhm.
Whether or not whether or not you are addressing the right problems, because sometimes that's another issue. There are many problems that you want to tackle and you want to solve.
Mhm.
But it may not be the right problem to solve. And so that's where you rely on your employees to sort of be the mirror that you need. And that can, and people who can tell you the truth about how you're leading and how effective it is.
Exactly.
And go from there.
Exactly.
Yes.
So do us all a favor. I would love to continue this conversation whenever we get a chance, but please let everybody know something motivational to take us out.
I think like just upon reflecting on the conversation that we had today, um, I would say that it is very important to tune out the noise. If you find yourself around people or in situations that will tell you what you cannot do, move as far away as you can so that you are no longer able to hear them out.
Yes.
I think it's so important because when you're trying to build a business, when you're trying to establish your ministry and your purpose, you'll have these people around. You will have, we call them naysayers or haters. But
Yes.
I would like for us to reframe the challenge. Maybe these people are not necessarily naysayers. Maybe there are people who also had dreams
Mhm.
and they were surrounded by, by a crowd that kept telling them that they couldn't do X, and
Mhm.
then they've made it a fact
Mhm.
in their lives. They've taken in the word, and they have sort of embodied that new reality, but it doesn't have to be your reality. And so I think that it's important to surround ourselves with people who empower us, like you've been doing, with your students. And like I'm doing in my business too, like ministering to people and understanding that everything you say may not necessarily resonate with someone right now, but it may resonate with someone else later. I think the crux of our conversation is to continue to plant seeds of goodness, and to continue to follow our path and stay on path, and within our purpose.
Yes.
And so that's what I would leave your audience with. Again, it's been a pleasure.
Oh
Truly,
my,
truly grateful and humbled, to have spent some time with you, to have
thank
this discussion around business development, but the ministry that the important ministries that we have in our respective fields.
you, and I respect you. The same thing. The humbleness, all of your business accolades, your knowledge. Oh my goodness, I am so intrigued by your profile. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love the
Thank
fact
you, thank you.
you are a melanated woman that has gone through these trials and tribulations and pushed through a society that totally, in many shape, forms, and facets, that are against our melanated women being successful. You push through that. Many blessings to you for that, no doubt. Many blessings.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we need to do a better job, even as Black women, to ensure that we continue to empower, Black men as well, because we're in this together.
Yes.
Whether people want to say that to themselves or not, whether you think you're independent, we're very much interdependent. We depend on each other. And it's another discussion on how, how not just slavery, but also colonialism, has sort of divided us. And I think it's really trying to get back into this movement of finding the linkages that unify us rather than divide us as
Indeed.
people of color. And so I would welcome for us to continue to talk, but continue to reflect on that last statement,
Yes,
on how we can better help each other as people of color.
yes,
Because ultimately, if society is against us, well, how can we fight back? How can we fight back and maintain our posture?
yes, yes, that's powerful. That is powerful. Oh my goodness, that is powerful. So,
Yes.
Miss Michelle, please let our people know where they can reach you.
So people can reach me on all social media platforms. I stay on LinkedIn, so please visit my LinkedIn profile. All you have to do is put in my name, as you see on the screen. And then also people can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and on my website, pathwaycoachwriting.com. I would love, if people have any writing needs, I would love to hear from them and see how I can help them, with their projects. And I know I'm definitely going to continue to be following your platform and your podcast. And so people need to tune in to your podcast, to get these types of authentic conversations, like I was saying earlier, on topics that are not necessarily covered in mainstream media. So I'm truly, truly grateful to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You are truly a blessing, no doubt, no doubt. And you definitely brought something to the table that most of our people really need to hear. This is such an honor. I am super, super happy. Thank you so much. So, for all of our people out there, make sure you're reaching out to Miss Michelle, social media platforms, any websites. I will definitely be posting the link in the description once I upload this video. So definitely make sure you're reaching out. Stop playing. Let's get this thing done. Let's get more people informed. Life is moving forward, and we all need to move forward with it. Thank you so much, Miss Michelle. Peace and blessings to you. And
Yes.
more. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.